Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. And in today's video we have this 2022 Cadillac Escalade. We're going to do a side door chrome delete installation for this vehicle. So as you can see, this is how it looks before doing the installation. Everything is just your regular chrome panel. And this is how it looks after the installation. So we use the gloss black material, that way it matches the color of the vehicle and also the color of the pillars here. If you like the product, link for the products will be in the description below. But with that being said, let's get started with the installation video. Okay, so before starting with the installation, we need to make sure we prep the panel. So you could take your vehicle to get a car wash before doing the installation. That way there's no contaminants on the panels. Also make sure when you're prepping the vehicle that everything is dry. So whatever you're using, either car wash or if you're using a bottle with a mixed solution that's safe to use on your vehicle, at the end, we need the panels to be dry. That way the water does not damage the adhesive on the film. So make sure the whole area is dry before starting the installation. So for this installation, we're going to start by aligning the film to this section of the panel. You can place the film, that way you're able to move the film around. So just place it there. It is going to be a little hard to work around this area because you only have a limited space to work with here. So just make sure you match the curved section of the film to the curved section of the chrome panel here. Find your way to adjust the film. Once you have it placed, start aligning the film to the panel. And it's just taking your time and doing this whole process here. I would recommend starting from the bottom section. So align it right there and make sure you're giving yourself enough material to cover the lower trim of the panel here. So it should be like this. Lift the film carefully and start placing the whole film on the panel. And it should reach up here and right here. So right here, all we're doing is just helping the film tack down. So you can use your finger or your squeegee. Just make sure you remove all of the air bubbles. Just help the film tack down. And now we're going to trim off the excess material that we have on this section here. So just take your time when trimming this excess material. Make sure you're not accidentally trim off too much and accidentally expose the chrome panel. So only what we need. And you're going to do the same on the bottom section here. Trim off the excess material. And then right here, the panel does have a cutout where it separates the curved section of the panel to this window trim here. You could trim it off exactly where the cutout is at, or you could give a little bit of extra material just to cover a little section of the chrome here. So it's personal preference, but just make sure you trim it off because the other piece that is going to be installed on this section here is going to align here as well, or wherever you trim off. And you do the same for the other section down there. And now we move on to the door trim. Okay, so now we move on to this section here. So with this one, start off where we trimmed off the excess material here and just work your way to this section here. Once you're here, you would also trim off the excess material on this side and on the top layer as well, unless you're tucking in. But if you're not tucking in, you just trim off the excess material. So grab the film, place it just so it stays there and it doesn't move, and start working on this area here. So align it and just start working your way from one edge to the other. And you could use the bottom half of the chrome panel as a guide in order to install the film. So once you place the film, grab your squeegee and start tacking it down, and make sure to remove any air bubbles behind the film. And then with this one, some of the vehicles do have this piece here, this plastic on the door, where you could tuck in the film inside. That way it makes it easier for you to just tuck in inside without needing to trim it or do any extra steps. But if you do that, just make sure you give yourself enough room to tuck in inside. If you only have a little bit on the edge, then not everything's going to be tucked in inside. So just make sure you give yourself enough material to cover the inside as well. Once you tack down the film, grab your blade and start trimming off the excess material, and take your time when you're doing this. And don't forget to trim off the excess material on this side. And now the next thing to do is apply heat. That way we help the adhesive on the film tack down better to the panel. Okay, so you will grab the next piece. The next piece is the more thicker piece. That piece will be for this section here since it is more thicker. The thinner pieces will be for only the top sections. So with this one, align the edge here to the edge where we did the trim on this side. So place the film here just so it could be easier to align. So align it on the edge and you should have enough material to cover the top section here. Lift the film carefully and just use the bottom half of the trim as a guide in order to align the film to the panel. Okay, and now you will grab your squeegee and start tacking down the whole film. And then any excess material that we do have on the top section here, we will just trim it off. So grab your blade and trim off the excess material. And then don't forget to trim off the extra material on this section here. And now we could apply heat just to help the adhesive on the film activate faster. And then once we're done with this piece, you would just rinse and repeat the same steps that we did for these two to the last two pieces here. So now we're moving on to this section of the panel. So with this one, start by aligning the film to the badge emblem here. So to align it, what you need to do first is stick this piece of the film to the panel. That way you're able to use both hands and focus on aligning this section here. So just align it right on the center and it should look like this. Lift the film carefully and just place it for an hour like that. That way we're able to fix this area first. So fix it here and fix it wherever you see any small fingers. So it should feel flat here. That way it covers this whole section right here. And now all you need to do now is continue with the rest of the installation. So once you place it here, you can work your way installing the rest of the film. So just make sure if you need to lift the film, you can. Just take your time and make sure it's aligned to this section here. And it goes inside here. And then for this whole area, just lift the film carefully up until where we left off and slowly, little by little, work your way on installing the rest of the film. So just like this, and it should go up to the top. It should cover everything here. And then just make sure everything is still aligned. If you need to fix it and adjust it, you can. So just lift the film. Since you do have a lot of extra material here, all you need to do is just make sure everything stays aligned. Lift the film carefully and squeegee little by little. And now all we need to do now is make sure we remove any air bubbles that are behind the film and just tuck in everything else. So just take your time, each section, help tuck in the film. And then to help tack down the film on this section here, the curve, just apply heat to help bring down this film. And then the material here, you could lift the rubber gasket in order to tuck it in inside there. Start applying heat on all the edges. That way you're able to tack down around the curve. And then once you're done, that's when you will trim off all the excess material. Grab your heat gun and start applying heat. Lift the film carefully, lift the gasket, and you can tuck in the film inside here. Okay, now that we're done adding heat around the edges and tacking down the curved edges as well, now we could trim off the excess material. And just apply heat one more time just to help tack down any edges that we trimmed off. And then once you're done with this installation, we can move on to the lower trims of the door. So when it comes to the lower chrome panels of the vehicle, I recommend starting with the small section of the panel here. That way when you finish installing this one and finish installing the rest of them, you have an idea of where you need to trim off the excess material when you finish installing the last sections here. With these two, just find the corresponding piece to each side and then just lay it onto the panel. You could help it curve down with heat, but it's just tacking down, adding heat, that way the edges do not lift, and that's pretty much it. You would do the same to this side once you get to this section, but we recommend starting with this piece first before installing the other. So now add heat just to tack down the edges. Now move on to these two. So once you finish installing the side piece, recommend the next one to install is the bottom section here. So for this one, I recommend doing is aligning it right underneath the body line of the top layer first. So right underneath it, so roughly around there, and just give yourself enough material to cover the edge right here. And just follow along with the rest of it, just right underneath the body line. And the reason why we're doing it right underneath the body line is so that way the remaining section here covers the section underneath here. So once you place it, grab your squeegee and start tacking down the whole film. And make sure you remove any air bubbles from behind the film. Take your time. And this excess material, we left it that way in case you want to move it more that way, you can. But afterwards, you can just trim it off once you finish with the whole installation. So make sure this section's done. And now move on to this section. And it's just tacking down the whole panel. And the same steps that we did for this piece, you would just rinse and repeat for the piece for this other section here for the bottom. Okay, and now we can move on with installing the top piece. Okay, so start from this edge. Just make sure you give yourself enough material to cover the curve here. So that should be fine. Right on the edge. And just follow along with the rest of the install. And then just start tacking the whole film down. Take your time, tack it down. And for this curved section here, we're just going to apply heat. That way we help tack down this curve here. And after that, just trim off the excess material that we have on the top layer and helping it tack down on the curve as well. Okay, and now once we're done tacking on the whole film, now we can start trimming off the excess material. So with this one, there is a small gap between the door panel and the chrome panel. So just find that gap and just be careful when trimming. Take your time and just trim off all that excess material. Okay, so here now we will just see where we need to trim off. Since we already have this section covered, all we need to trim off is just a little piece here. That way it has full coverage. And then with heat, we'll wrap around it. Okay, and now the same steps that we did for this one, you would just rinse and repeat for this piece. So remember, start with the small piece first, then the lower section, and then finish off with the top piece. So once you finish installing the whole kit for the chrome delete, the last thing to do is post heating. So when you post heat, you just use your heat gun and go on each section of the panel that we worked on and apply heat. That way we help the adhesive on the film activate faster, and also we help it on the edges to tack down and stay more secure. So just post heat the whole entire panel. Once you finish post heating, you're done with the installation. So that concludes the installation video for the side door chrome delete installation for the 2022 Cadillac Escalade. We hope that this video helped you guys out with the installation. If it did, don't forget to drop a like on the video. Make sure you subscribe and turn on that notification bell. That way you don't miss any upcoming installation videos. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.